Welcome to day 3 of our 14-day yoga challenge. This will be our first yin yoga class and we'll be focusing on opening up our hips. I'll be using 2 blocks for this practice. If you don't have any, you can grab some big books or even a couple pillows as well. They're not crucial for the class, so don't worry about it if you don't have any. Yin yoga is quite different from vinyasa flow, so we'll be holding our poses for a lot longer, which helps us gain a lot more flexibility and mobility in our joints. We'll begin lying down in reclined butterfly pose. So lying down on your back, bring the soles of your feet together and let the knees fall apart. So I'm going to put a block under each thigh so I have a little bit more support. This is completely optional. Feel free to move them out of the way if you'd like. Palms can rest on the belly or stay out to the sides or even up overhead. Just get situated in a way where you can relax the muscles in the shoulders, in the neck, and in the jaw. When we practice yin yoga, we're always trying to let gravity do most of the work for us. This is not a practice for effort and strength, or rather a practice for flexibility and stress release. And as we hold these poses longer and longer, just ask yourself how you can relax a little bit more into the shape. Even softening some muscles that you might not normally think about. So if you're frowning, clenching your jaw, gripping through the fingers or the toes. Just let those areas go and focus on becoming heavier and heavier down on the ground. We'll be holding each pose for about 3 or so minutes. Try to send the breath all the way down into the lower part of your belly, underneath your palms, so that you feel your belly rise and fall with the rhythm of your breath. Gently inviting the hips to open up a little bit more by letting the knees fall apart. Let's bring our hands towards the knees and the outer edges of your legs and help the knees back in towards each other. Keep your feet about hip width distance apart or wider, and just do a little windshield wiper motion with the knees, so dropping them from one side to the next. We'll be making our way into reclined pigeon pose, so keeping your feet flat on the mat. We're going to cross our right ankle over the top of the left thigh. Keep your right foot firmly flexed and work on pressing your right knee away from you. For some of us, this will be as far as we go. If you'd like to take this a little bit further, you can elevate your left foot by putting a block underneath it, or if you'd like to go further still, you're going to reach with your arms, either holding on to the back of the thigh or the front of the shin as you pull that left knee in towards the chest. So keep that right foot flexed, keep pressing your right knee away from you, and although you are using a little bit of arm strength, you don't want to overstrain yourself. Make this as passive and as restful as you can, drawing the shoulder blades down the back, without rolling on one side more than the other, keeping the weight evenly distributed. Tailbone is pressing down on the floor, so we're not lifting our hips up. And breathing directly into the intensity of the stretch, so wherever you feel this most, deep into that right hip. Take your last 3 breaths here. See if you can squeeze that left knee a little bit closer towards the chest, pressing the right knee away. And let's release on crossing the legs. Set the feet back down on the floor. And same thing as before, just a little windshield wiper motion. Releasing the lower back. Switching sides, so this time the right foot stays down. We're going to cross our left ankle over the top of the right thigh. Press your left knee away from you. Keep that foot firmly flexed and either place a block underneath your right foot or just pull the right thigh in towards the belly. Grabbing a hold of whatever is accessible. Remind the shoulders to press away from the ears. Keep the neck nice and long. As little effort in the arms as you can. And come back to your breath. Our last 3 breaths here. Maybe squeeze that right knee in a little bit closer towards you. Making space in the left hip joint. Let's release, no rush. Just uncross the legs, feet back on the floor. That same drop of the knees from side to side. Let's pull our knees in towards our chest, give them a big squeeze. Coming onto a tabletop pose, onto hands and knees, just roll over onto one side, lifting yourself up. So aligning our palms underneath our shoulders, knees underneath our hips. We're gonna pad our left knee, so you can either put a blanket or a pillow underneath it. I'm just gonna double up my mat here so that I have a little bit more padding underneath my left knee. I'm gonna step my right foot forward to the outside edge of my right hand. So both arms are to the inside of your right leg. You wanna make sure that your ankle stays stacked underneath the knee and the knee is not going past the ankle. Back toes are pointing back. Either stay up onto your palms, grab a hold of your block, or lower down onto the forearms. We want to keep squeezing our right thigh in towards the right bicep. And notice how it's tempting to round and contract here. As much as possible, try to pull your heart forward and flatten the upper back. Because we are here for a little while, my favorite way to do this is with a block underneath the forehead so that I don't have to put too much effort to hold my head up and the neck can relax. This is one of the most intense poses that we do in Yin Yoga. So if you need to take a break at any point, please feel free to do so. Always trying to resist the urge to fidget or distract ourselves. Instead, focusing on the sensations in the hips, in the lower back, inner groin. And breathing a little bit deeper. So we're about halfway through this pose. I'll give you a second option, those of you who would like to take it a little bit deeper. If that's the case, you're going to lift your right toes off the floor and you're just going to spin your foot open at about a 45-degree angle. So I'm rotating from the hip, aligning the knee and aligning the ankle. And then you're rolling to the outer edge of your right foot so that the knee is pressing down. And this should help to send the stretch a little bit more into the outer edge of the hip. Our last full minute here in this pose. Soften the hips down a little lower. So one step at a time. If you're on the forearms, start by coming back up onto the palms. And then we're going to turn our right toes, the knee and the hip to point forward once more. Coming back into our tabletop. Knees together, palms underneath the shoulders, unfolding the mat. And we'll move over to the second side. So let's pat our right knee first, either with a blanket or just by doubling up your mat. And then you're going to step your left foot forward to the outer edge of your left palm. So both arms again to the inside of that left thigh. Make some space here, aligning the knee directly over the top of the ankle. So we're starting with the first variation with the knee and the toes pointing towards the top of the mat. Choose if you're going to stay up onto your palms or if you're going to lower down either onto your forearms or onto a block. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the first side and just put a block directly underneath the forehead. You need to engage the adductors, so the muscles along the inner thighs, a little bit here to keep squeezing your left knee in towards the left arm so it doesn't open up towards the sides. We'll do that in our second variation. Pressing the hips forward and down, drawing the shoulder blades down the back. Breathing deeply into the lower back. Into the pelvis and hips. Letting gravity pull the hips lower a little bit more with every breath you take. And we're about halfway through. So if you want to take your second variation, you're just going to turn your left toes out towards the sides at about a 45-degree angle. Roll to the outer edge of your left foot so the sole of the foot is lifted. And then let the hips, chest, and the forehead sink down towards the floor. Minimizing the effort required in the shoulders and in the arms. Notice if you're tightening up the quads or the glutes. Let the legs soften so the knee can open up a little bit more. And you're just flexing your left foot so it stays in line with the knee. Helps to protect the joint. Bring a little bit more effort into the arms as we lift our chest. Coming back up onto the palms first. And then internal rotation of the hip to point the knee and the toes forward. Back into our tabletop pose. Unfolding the mat. And before we come into Shavasana, just take a moment to stretch the legs out. Doing any little movements that you need to do here to free up the thighs and the hips after those deep hip openers. We're going to swing our legs forward, lowering all the way down onto your back. And just squeeze your knees in towards the chest. Maybe rock a little bit side to side, massaging the lower back. And bring your knees wide apart, bringing them in towards the outer edges of your ribs and towards the armpits. Pulling the knees down. One final big squeeze here. And let's lengthen, straighten the legs. Take up space with the hands and the arms. Palms are facing up. Shrug your shoulders away from the ears here, so there's plenty of room for your neck. If your lower back feels sensitive in any way, you can always keep your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. So Shavasana is a pose where we let go of the need to do any effort, enjoying what it's like to do absolutely nothing. And I encourage you to stay here for a few minutes. This is where I will leave you. Thank you so much for doing this practice with me, and I will see you tomorrow for our next class.